Did that. All right. I think we are go. Look at that. Everyone's got audio. Can chat hear me? Oh my gosh.
Hey yo.
Mago,
Hello.
Rogan.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, happy belated Thanksgiving. What'd you guys have?
Happy Cyber
Happy
Monday.
Thanksgiving to you as well.
Oh, you're here eating popcorn like a fat ass. It's great. Oh, we got Tim in the chat. Happy Thanksgiving, man. So this is MUME Talk 19. Oh my God, 19.
Yeah, wow.
Today we've got special guest with us, HAP. I think that's like your most known character. Zelia's your god, right?
Yeah, however you pronounce it. Zelia, Exelia.
Exelia. Oh, that sounds way cooler.
Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce my own characters' names either.
Tareen.
But yeah, I have a ton of characters, but HAP is the highest level.
Tell us, man. Give us a roll call. Give us a roll call of the ones you feel comfortable revealing, of course.
No. We need all the incomes too.
Yeah.
There's so many to list, but I'll just throw out a few, I guess, highlights. So HAP, I started RUP recently, which is a smiting defense warrior. It works, but it didn't work as well as I thought it would. So he's kind of on the shelf now. So I don't know. I've been playing MUME for a really long time. I started, and it's sort of been off and on. I started technically, I think, like in 1992. So my orc, probably the most well-known orc, at least like for old times, is Luku, Shaman. But he mob died too many times, so I don't even play him anymore. Let's see. Felum. Oh yeah, Felum is my mage that I also don't play anymore because he mob died too many times.
Yeah, that's the one I think I knew you best on. Phelam or Felum, whatever you
Yeah.
He's a man, right? Man mage?
Yep. And that was really fun. High level mage is, and I think other guests have said this already, but mage is like overpowered.
Yeah.
I made
overpowered.
That's a hot take right there. I don't
fun.
know about that.
Yeah.
Otacaron is Dario. He's an Italian player that I kind of became friends with, and on a whim, I decided to make a mirror name, or like sort of a mirror name, Noricatho, which is my new mage, a Noldor
Not
elf.
the same guy? I assumed that was the same player. So you're two different players with the paladin names? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I hear that a lot actually, and it's funny when we both log in, and they're like, "Wait, what?" So yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's so many other characters, but I would be sitting here talking about my account the whole time to list them all.
You said 1992, correct?
Yeah. So
right at the beginning, the very earliest days, for real?
Yeah. When did MUME start?
I think it was 92.
Was it?
Yeah, it was like it was right around like I think early '92, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that.
Okay, maybe it
Well,
was.
we just had the 30th year anniversary in January of this year, so right around 92. Yeah.
Fair enough. It might have been a little bit after that. It was somewhere around the beginning though. And I was talking to Nick about this a week or two ago, but like I found it so interesting that Trample's story, for how he found MUME was like almost identical to mine. But I have a couple of details that might be interesting that I think Nick thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
And that was, so the way I found it, so I've always been like a nerd into like fantasy games and stuff like that. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons when I was younger in the 80s, but I really didn't know what I was doing, like trying to dungeon master. And I always thought like, cause I played like those text games, like, what's the one you mentioned, Nick? I can't remember.
Zork.
Yeah.
Zork. Yeah. Adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, I've played games like that, and I remember at the time thinking like, man, how cool would it be if somebody like created a multiplayer version of this? And then my stepdad, who's a a programmer. He had like a Wired magazine. This is like 1992 or 1993, whenever it was that I first found MUME. And he showed me this like small article about MUDs, and
That's amazing.
and it had like a gopher. I don't know if you guys remember Gopher.
Yep, totally.
I do.
It had like a gopher link to go to find a list of MUDs, and somehow like I think I picked like the subsection for Lord of the Rings, and there was like 4 or 5 MUDs listed there, and I just happened to pick MUME, and so I just thought it was interesting that the first MUD that I pick ends up being one that lasts for 30 years.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah. The first, I was like, oh, I'll give this a try. 25 years later. Yeah. But that's amazing, dude. Wired in the 90s. Nobody, a young child like Peter, you just have no idea what Wired was in the 90s. It was like every month, this Bible of just nerd culture, but it was like, imagine you're a cool nerd culture. It was like being a nerd is cool. This Bible would just arrive and we would just pour over it.
Wired.
I remember trading Wired magazine at Boy Scout camp. Like, oh, can I have yours? And it would be like 6 months old. It's almost like trading a Playboy magazine or something, except it's talking about like a 28K BPS modem or something, or But man, so we gotta go track down that old copy of Wired that has the gopher link to
You can probably find it on Google. I'm sure they have.
We'll track it down, man. We'll track that down for sure.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I wonder if I'm sure Wired's still around. Isn't it like an internet publication now? It might be.
It is, but those.
I'll bet they're going through rough times, so we should try to submit like a MUME blurb into it. They might snap at it since.
We should. Yeah.
Like, blast from the past.
Yeah. I remember Wired magazine. I have the same sort of fond memories of Wired magazine as you. I always thought it was cool when like a new one would come out. I guess magazines were different back then, right? Like, now they're just. I don't really care about magazines anymore.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I read a magazine.
Now I'm gonna get on eBay and start buying the '90s Wired now. I'm totally doing
like
it.
Unless you're like in a Supercuts, like waiting for a haircut, even then you're on your phone.
Exactly.
We should go.
What
We should
hair
go
salon
to.
has
We should
Wired
go
in
to
it?
our neighborhood Supercuts and be like, "Do you have the Wired from 1992 that references
It's just like
Muds?"
plant copies of Wired. It's super.
You know, actually,
There we go.
I'll bet people have so little clue. It's actually like their magazine repertoire. Like these companies, they'll just leave them out on the tables and stuff. I'll bet you could swap out the magazines and they would never know. And you could, you could just like swap a whole bunch of Wired in there. And they had no clue.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, another magazine that's still around today is 2600, which is the Hacker Quarterly. And one of the things they historically have done since they started in 1984 is they always have pictures of payphones from around the world because it goes back into the phone freaking days. And so when you mentioned trading them like Playboys, my mind instantly jumped to like I always looked, I could see a lot better back when I was younger, and I look in the back and see all these weird, funky looking
from like Malaysia or something.
Europe,
Eastern European, Soviet.
Those,
I totally
bright
remember
red
that.
ones from the UK, and
Yeah.
Totally. So what? So Matt, do you remember what zone you started in? Like, were you just in? I think.
Oh yeah. So
tell us about what you remember.
First MUME experience. I remember it really well. Just because it's like I said, it just sounded. So first of all, when I found that article, I was like, holy shit! Somebody actually they actually did it. The idea that I had in my head, of course, and of course somebody would have done it because it just works. But then so I logged into MUME and a character named Jair, Jae or Jair, which I think was played by Gallon, and probably not a lot of people remember him, but he built like a ton of zones. So I was like walking around in Brie, well, I was in Brie. I think I only went like 3 rooms. Like I followed somebody and I went like 3 rooms and I was like, wow, this place is huge.
It's a whole town.
Yeah. So, and then Anna Ryan was the first guy to lead me for XP. And the first orc to kill me was Argle Bargle. So that's
oh my gosh.
like really old school. Yeah. So, but like, so I've been playing off and on for I guess the last 30 years. There's been years of break here and there. But I've been probably pretty consistently playing for the last at least 10 years.
Yeah, pretty established name. I think you've probably bumped into pretty much everyone in MUME at this point, for sure. I don't even remember when we started playing together, man. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being on the podcast. Before we get too much more into things, actually, we do have some game news here, which is not official game news, but
we have unofficial game news.
We have unofficial game news, which is that player Roble has hit level 100.
Oh, that's
so
right.
shout out to Roble.
Shout out.
Congratulations.
Shout out, Robo.
That's crazy. I heard
Awesome.
in true epic fashion, he got level 100 killing the Witch King on the Black Throne. And also true to fashion, everything did not go perfectly smoothly. Apparently, someone was trying to quake them. Some same side quaking happened, but they made it level 100. You can't lose XP in Mirror, so congrats to Robo.
That's impressive, especially being 100 in Mirror, because it's very hard to do Mirror once you're like 70 plus, just because you can't take as many people in the Mirror with you.
The levels.
But you total levels can't exceed 350. So if you have one level 100 there and a couple level 50 pluses, like you can't get 7 people joining in Mirror, unless you
want to just loot.
Yes. Essentially Robo was taking like three slots if you had like just a regular legend group.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you were there for it?
No. I'm just kind of reiterating this point.
I'm pretty sure Tim was there for it, and Gene, and I think there was a couple other people.
I hope you logged it.
Maybe
that is so cool.
But yeah, big congrats to Robo.
Shout out Robo. Anyway. I thought it was Roball all this time, so again, fundamental pronunciation issue. Yeah. Roball sounds like more epic to me.
It does sound, actually. I think you're right. We'll go with Roball.
I don't know if there's any like clear-cut way to pronounce a character name.
There's not. That's the one thing this podcast has accomplished, is making it clear that no one has a clue. Nobody has a clue how to pronounce any of this shit.
Very insane in chat. So Robal was taking up 3 slots, and he couldn't help because he wanted to hit 100 at the end, so he couldn't assist on everything. That's hilarious.
Oh,
so they basically four-manned it, I guess.
So they 4-manned it, or 5-manned it, I guess. Yeah.
Or he just fled out after every.
Walked out of the room when they would kill things.
That's funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's actually way more impressive now.
Yeah, it is. But knowing Tim and I think Tim and Gene probably put up a good fight. Just the pair of them, they're pretty good players.
I think Tim was on Squeegee, and Squeegee is just like a god tier power character.
Yeah.
God tier. Like when you how you can like solo Muranog and everything. He's the kind of character that walks in there and makes it look like he still has extra mana after whiz killing it.
Yeah.
Gene Quake does. What's your highest level character, Matt?
So HAP is the highest level that I have at 86 or no 87. I leveled recently.
Damn.
Oh, nice.
Wait, which one is that?
HAP.
Oh, HAP's 87. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
Is he your favorite?
He's
like a defense warrior, kind of like Dent, right?
Yeah. Defense warrior. I don't know.
In many ways, better than Dent, because I think human is like actually. If I had done Dent like from the beginning again, I would have made Dent a human. Like human's actually really cool for warrior for so many reasons.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things I thought always about are we calling it Phelim or Philam? I feel like Philam is kind of one of the coolest things about him is the fact he's a man. You don't see a lot of man mages anymore. Like back in the day, you used to have like, remember Helmer? Does anyone remember Helmer? That dude.
I do.
I actually have no idea if he was like a dick of a player or anything. But at that time,
Helmer is Spartan, right?
Is he?
Yeah, Helmer's an elf, dude. Maybe we're talking about somebody else.
Wait, is he really? Is he an elf? Oh my gosh.
H-E-L-M-E-R is a Noldo elf.
Oh, okay.
That's Spartan.
My entire point just went is mute. So we're gonna forget I said anything. But
yeah, no, it's fun playing a human mage, but elf. I mean, when I made a new mage after I essentially rage quit Phelim after that last mob death. Actually,
rage. See, there's the rage. There we go.
yeah.
The mob death actually was really. I'm such an idiot for letting this happen. I was doing because I tend to like Quake solo Chief a lot, and I was trying to do Chief with Phelim, and I think a Scout BN, and I don't know who it was, but a Scout BN came, and I fled south into Chief with the door intact, like it wasn't broken, and he closed and picked the door, and I was like, and the thing is you would think so. This
PK die from No Void.
Yeah, that's what you would think, right? But I lasted too long in there, so for whatever reason, it ended up being a mob death, and like I had like a max. Except for Shining Metal, I had a max set. I just quit and I didn't look back.
Yeah.
So
I do that about once a month.
Yeah.
But just walk away. Just walk away.
Always with the max set.
That sucks though, man. About that. Did you? I mean, I know the closure and the purifying experience of just walking away. I very much am a fan. I very much know that. But I wonder almost if you'd petition the gods if maybe you could have got that at least converted to a PK rip instead of a full mob.
I thought about that briefly, and I don't know. I guess I kind of dismissed that as an idea because I've been around on this game for so long, and I've seen things that are approved by the gods and the things that aren't.
Back in Vietnam.
I felt like that was not. I felt like they wouldn't have mercy. They'd just be like, "Well, sucks."
Yeah.
You know. So I was like, "I'll just leave it. I'll make a new mage."
Yeah, there's usually not a lot of leniency. When it comes to that sort of stuff. This is kind of a pre-hot take, not really a hot take, but an opinion, and I'd like to hear you guys' opinions on things. One of the things I find really kind of toxic, I guess, about MUME is the fact that characters can feel like they're ruined. I think that's like really draconian, and
my entire player account feels like it's ruined.
Yeah, like if I understand that, you know, if mob dying and stuff should make the game harder, and you shouldn't it shouldn't be like, oh yeah, well, you just mob died and it's fine and no consequences. But I kind of feel like maybe like over the course of the next like month or so, like your trophy kind of like forgives the loss or whatever or something. I don't know. But there's something really toxic about feeling like putting a bunch of effort into a character and then feeling like it's dead. It's not really dead because once you get into high levels, the trophy doesn't matter that much anyway. But I don't know. It bothers me.
When you get into the higher clarification, because when you get in the higher levels, mob death is, mob death on level 26 is a lot easier to bounce back from than mob death at level 90.
Yeah, I'm just saying that
I mob died twice around level 82, 83, and it is not fun.
But isn't it true, like above like level 80, pretty much everything you're killing is basically maxed? So
I see what you're saying.
From a trophy standpoint.
Yeah. So you didn't really ruin your trophy. You just kind of
No, I know exactly. Yeah. So I think
what
Peter's like talking about, and I know this because I've done this to him, and he's done this to me.
Yeah.
Is you start a new character, you're hyped, it's working out, you're training stats, you're shifting pracs, it's coming together. You're like, man, this character feels really fun, and you're totally into it. And then typically it's like in the 20s, like 21, 22, 23, you mob rip. It's the first mob rip, and you're just like, fuck. and you just abandon the character. I have mob ripped Peter's new character around in the 20s multiple times, and he's quit playing him. He's done that to me, and it's just like I think it's because everybody, like, we don't talk about it, but whenever you make a new character, there's like that little secret excitement. You're like, this is gonna be it. This is gonna be my character that goes the distance. This is the guy. Like, you have so much just like surging irrational excitement. Like, I'm just gonna play this guy from now on, and then something catastrophic happens, and you're like, fuck.
Like, imagine this is
to your character too.
This is kind of a good way of putting it. Like, you know, when you go to the gym and you're like, I'm going to build some muscles or whatever. You go in there and you're like, okay, great, I'm building muscle. This feels okay. Maybe not, but you're making progress. You know, you're making progress. And then let's say you don't work out for a while and you come back. Imagine then coming back is harder to make progress than before. Like, getting back to, like, let's say you lose some muscle. Now you want to get back to whatever weight you were before. It's now harder than it was before. That's kind of what it feels like. And that's a really terrible feeling, as opposed to, like, it should be almost easier to get back to your starting spot. That, you know?
Well, this is
nothing against mob rip. It's just the fact that you're ruining the effectiveness of your character.
Well,
it's very psychological.
When you spent weeks to get a level, and then all of a sudden your level's gone, and now you've got to spend even more time to re-level again. And I'm talking about the very high levels here. It's quite demotivating. And yeah, I mean, that's why I've said for the last couple of years, like, I would really like them to re-examine mob death. I'm not saying get rid of it, but I don't think mob death you should be pretty much an automatic level loss. It's ridiculous.
I don't know that mob death. I'm okay with mob death. It's the trophy system. Is that?
Maybe
that's the thing. If they did something like twice the XP until you level again or something like that, then I wouldn't complain as much. But that's the thing. It's because of the trophy system, your character, you know, after several mob deaths, your character is kind of hampered. It can't really level very much.
Yeah, I agree. I like that idea, Peter, of the but I don't know how it would work. But yeah, of like fixing your trophy over time or something. Because
maybe it could be like if you grind your ass off and get the level back in a short period of time, your trophy's restored somehow.
Right. Yeah, because for me, it's not the XP loss; it's the trophy. Yeah, it's like you said, the ruin, and maybe part of it is psychological, but it's the feeling of the character's ruined. Like, and that's part of the reason. Like, I think that we're always so overpowered in our groups and our characters, because Peter's kind of in contrast to this. It kind of plays risky, but like, I always play really wimpy because I don't want to. I'm not going to play the character anymore if I end up mobbing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd say for me, mobbing is way more demotivating and devastating than PK death. Like, I would happily be PK'd and gacked, you know, full gack and lose a full set than eat a mob, especially after level, you know, 50, 60. It's terrible. So I like the idea of you could repair your trophy, though, because if you had a way to repair your trophy so it didn't ultimately affect your ability to gain levels, you just had to maybe take extra time to get that level back, I would have no problem.
Yeah, you know what, honestly, let's put it this way. It's so much not a mob death problem as a trophy problem for me. I would happily take the equivalent of doubling the mob death loss if it meant no effect to my trophy. I would prefer that.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
I would have no.
That's saying something, because like level 90 mob death is what, like 3 or 4 million.
Yeah, I'm not even say the math works out in my favor. I'm just saying, like, that, like, psychologically, it just feels better. Like, okay, you just reset a couple hours as opposed to.
Well, it goes back. I mean, I think I had this. I mean, I'm broke. Basically, like, it's pretty clear that I use a podcast to just advance like my same 3 ideas over and over again. So I should stop doing that. But my idea that if you're grouping with someone, if you're leading a group and somebody in the group has like is getting first kill on the mob and you're the leader, you should also get first kill on the mob because you're taking them along. So there should be some logic that if you're like basically as a way to incentivize leadership, that if you're helping a new character advance their knowledge, you get some commensurate benefit of that.
I think that'd be great for the game.
Hey, I kind of agree with Staub's comment. If you don't mind, Peter, I'll read it.
Yeah,
it says, there's so much XP in MUME, it's impossible to ruin a character unless you mob rip like 30 times at level above 60. And reading that, he's right. Like,
yeah, but I think people think we're saying that like mathematically it's really, that's not it. It's just psychological. It's very psychological, right?
It is.
I mean, you can just quake black bears and huge black wolves for a long time. But it's not. It's just we're saying psychologically, just that you get invested in a character, and then especially like the shitty mob rip, and you just feel like I was leveling up a new row here, and I was XPing north of Ingrove, and I was fighting one room away from Roots. Fighting one black bear, another black bear walks in, I flee in Roots, and then instantly both black bears came north to the Roots, and I die. And it's like, God, and you just feel like you just psychologically, you're like, no.
Oh,
and I haven't played that character since then, you know? So we're just talking very, very psychological. Just like, we're just revealing how sadly and pathetically we get invested, I guess.
Yeah.
Really, what it boils down to is we're just bad players. That's the big thing. But you know, it's also.
So Matt and Dent, we have. I'm trying to think. Are there other very Death Warrior playstyle guys that high, 80 and above? I mean, we've got two of them on the pod here. I can't think of any. Is there like tell us about that?
Right?
Yeah, at an extreme meta level. Yeah. But tell us.
I mean.
Tell us, like, what is that play style like? Like, is playing high beat Death Warrior different than Legend Death Warrior? Are there meaningfully different strategies compared to just like, are you just playing a warrior a bit more carefully, or is it different? Just tell us about Death Warrior, and especially Death Warrior at high level.
I mean. At high level, I would say, so my strategy, honestly, my strategy is probably kind of lame. I just get a bunch of hitters to stand behind me, and then I just plow through stuff.
That's a fantastic strategy.
Yeah.
It's a great strategy.
But you end up doing, especially like in DG and stuff, or I don't know, just any super mob area. You end up doing it so many times that you learn like the best way to do it. And then, like sometimes I will kind of, like give people instructions on what to do. Like doing Druidess, for example, I'll be like, okay, we'll kill Roots and then we're out. Or like, Roots and an Oak and we're out. But I usually hit Wounded pretty quickly, regardless. Like, there's so many oak trees there, and
split. Yeah.
Depending on what group dynamic I have, like if I have two warriors with me, because this, and I'm thinking of like XPing last night. I'll have two warriors with me, and I'll be like, okay, Warrior A, rescue me at Wounded, and then Warrior B, rescue Warrior A when he hits Wounded, because a lot of times OB warriors that are high level will go down pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's just, those are only followers you trust, right?
Yeah.
I'll usually, and I'll usually, like if I have a group, I will usually do easier stuff first. Like one of the things that I used to do was I would leave Rivendell, clear O'Hurk, maybe clear Brolg, and kind of see how the group works first before I move on to more difficult stuff. Without jumping into complicated shit.
From an equipment standpoint, I'm sure both of you have kind of experimented with like going ultra high defense versus super high absorption. Have you guys ever experimented with are you guys always just rocking fine metals and shining metals, or do you guys ever experiment with mixing in some like white males or something. Like, what have you guys ever messed with that?
Absorb is king in MUME.
Yes.
Like there's no.
So even at high level, there's no variability in equipment, really, is what you're saying.
Not in my opinion. I mean, you could try it, but like ultimately, you go tank like Moria, you're gonna want that metal.
Split.
Yeah, or Guardian or something, you know. Like back in the day, back when Ringmail was a thing, 'cause Den is actually a very old character. I created him, I got him up to level 35, retired him for years and years and years, never played him, then unretired him and leveled him up. But I back in the day when Ringmail was a thing, Den wore Ringmail, and it was a different experience. But honestly, Absorb is.
Why'd you say it like that?
Yeah,
It was because
it was kind of
there might be place there might
sounds like you had a threesome or something.
yeah. Well,
open relationship
it
with
just
Ringmail.
didn't.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
polyamorous.
Well, I wasn't
going,
feeling
keep
it.
going.
Sorry, go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
I wasn't feeling it. I mean,
I'm being
that's the
an
thing.
asshole. Yeah.
I mean, Ringmail also was kind of crap in those days too. But I was playing around with different equipment types, and the thing is, with metals, you might say, oh, you're more vulnerable in PK to Ornate or Morningstar or something, right? But at the same time, you're in Absorb gear. I think, and this is something like I've seen a couple other Def Warriors that really don't they don't ever wear metal. They only wear like max DB gear, and that's and that's great if you can make it for your playstyle. But then the moment that they come into a group and they're expected to buff like Guardian, I'm remembering a Def Warrior a while back only wore DB gear, and I was like, yeah, me on my OB Warrior, I'm gonna have to like get a Sank and buff Guardian, aren't I? Because he couldn't, it's nothing to do with it was a great character. It's just that he was not wearing the right equipment for the job.
Yeah. So Rockbin comes to mind.
Oh yeah,
as a DB, a very DB oriented Def Warrior, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, he
well,
rolls
I was
around with,
actually
like,
talking about him, but I.
Oh, okay.
I was actually referencing because he's a great guy and that's a fantastic character. It's just it's kind of. And it's great if you PK. And
It's
selective.
So, it's selective.
I'll be honest.
Yeah,
I never
but
understood.
For XPing or smobbing, it's not so great.
I never understood though the draw of like a DB warrior when you could just do a DB defense focused war mage. I always felt like the stats are just better. You have better defense. Okay, you have a few less hit points. You can have better armor. Like why would you ever do just a pure defense?
I think I've heard the theory advanced that like before the level changes and before kind of the modern gear landscape, like true high DB Def Warrior was like kind of in a league of its own, but I think that's just been diluted over the years, and it's much less distinct now than it was.
I think
HAP or Dent can hold their own against.
You guys, how much def do you guys roll around with?
Ooh, good question.
Like 160 or what?
So there was a time when like I was obsessed with DB on HAP. Like I would wear a fine grade cloak and then try to get the Oak Scar quest and wear BSB. But like I don't know. I guess maybe it's when you get to a really high level. I started feeling like it didn't really matter anymore. So with that being said, like I just wear the mirror cloak for like a little bit extra DB, and then I think I usually have like 53 DB and like over, I can't remember exactly, like maybe 110 PB.
Right. So 160-ish. Yeah, 53 sounds about right to me.
Yeah, and like I said, like I don't obsess over the DB anymore. And it's just like whatever, like because a lot of times I'll be carrying a bunch of shit too. So I'm just like, whatever. The shining metal, the shining metal will take make it so
your character doesn't matter anymore once you have shining metal. You're just Staub and Chat is flexing all over you with 170 plus defense. So
that's Staub.
This is interesting. I mean, I feel like if there was a way to make high, like a very DB centric strategy work, one of our two
Shiv.
one of our two guys
Shiv
here
is probably the
would
best
figure
person to
this
ask
out.
about that. Shiv had
Shiv, yeah.
because that dude, he was just like a mage basically
shit.
with like 200 defense.
Yeah.
But he actually
But
re-rolled
even he,
two awards.
I was with him. He was XPing level 92, and he randomly invited me, and he mob ripped on black roots and dark oaks in Old Forest Road Zone. He was quite upset about it. Yeah. But I guess interesting. So interesting.
And like I mentioned earlier at the beginning, I did try that, and I was kind of talking to Tim about this before I started it because it was an idea I had playing HAP, where I realized I kind of alluded to this on my previous statement, which is that defense. It's almost like defense doesn't even matter, like to a certain extent. Like after a while, this is my feeling, by the way. It's not backed up by any data, and so the reason I created RUP was because I was like, well, if the parry bonus doesn't really matter once you get really high level, why not just smite instead? And so that's why I created, but it didn't work. So it turns out my theory was like, it still works, but it's not as good as I thought it would be. He's not good at tanking those guardian type mobs.
Gotcha. You do need a certain amount of defense, is what you're saying. You can't only rely on
I think so, yeah.
We had a question from Nazgum here. He's basically wondering what motivates purely PvE players like yourself, and what changes would you want to make to kind of improve the PvE in MUME? And then Jahara has a follow-up to that, which is why do so few, mostly PvE players, do the same builds on Or Control? Or don't do the same builds.
Let me speak to Nazgum's question. I think what he's I read his comment, and I think what he's asking is like, what would it take for me to get more into PK? And I don't know. Like I think, like I'll just be honest. I play Wimpy because I don't want to lose that shining. And that a lot of that has to do with the fact that, because I
feel like that's one of the most honest things that's ever been said on this podcast. By the way, it's kind of like when like a bodybuilder says that it's like when a bodybuilder admits to taking steroids. It's like, yes, okay, thank you. That was honest. We appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a Lance Armstrong moment for us. Yeah.
Go ahead.
What would make you want to XP more in MUME? I'm asking. Oh, what? I'm confused.
So basically, he's saying he's not asking what would it take for you to PK. He's saying what would make you enjoy the PvE aspect of it more. Like how would make that part of the game
they do to enhance the experience that you have already.
Mm-hmm.
I see. I don't know. It's pretty. Like I really enjoy leading or just being in XP groups as it is. I can't think of anything that could improve on it. Just more expansion, more more new areas with more new mobs.
I have a suggestion for this. Make the XP or pretty much any gameplay loop in MUME shorter. You should be able to log on and have a blast in 15 minutes. You don't need Robal and I were we were talking about this a day or two ago, which is that, and we've mentioned this before, like you gotta have 2 hours to play MUME. You gotta have 2 hours to play MUME. And
that's true.
Most people who play the game are a little bit on the older side now in terms of like, at the very least, we're in adulthood, we're not teenagers. So time is limited and you want to just sit down and have fun. And would you rather sit down and have fun doing something else? Well, usually that other thing takes less time. So shortening is like, and especially if you're leading group XP, like you're saying, that takes even more time because you got to get the whole group together. You got to get to location. So maybe something that cuts that down. So like, hey, 30 minutes, you can have a great time in 30 minutes,
Who at 25 or older has 2 hours? I mean, maybe I'm out of touch, but like, because I know a lot of people do, like my old roommate used to sit on his PlayStation, play that all day, but like, who really has that amount of time between, you work, you have relationships, you have everything else. It's like, who has that time?
I think what happens, at least in my life, is so like it's something happens in your life, like you're not working for a while, and then you get super sucked into MUME. It's like it's modal, it's on or off. Like you have a breakup, which one of my big
Classic.
MUME playing eras was after a breakup or something. Right? You have a breakup, or you quit your job, you take some time off, and you get super into MUME, which is fun. And then you're like, oh God, I got to get the fuck out of here. Then you quit. Then you go back to your regular life and you don't play MUME for a while. Then 2 years later, something happens again, and you jump back in. So it's very like hot, cold, on or off.
Well, I think it's
And I think it kind of feeds. I think like it sort of like feeds into it, like people do that, and then like you play all the time, so your friend plays all the time, and like it just sucks you in. It's sort of like this gravity to it, and then but yeah, it defeats the like 2 hours or hour and a half on a Friday night type play style.
Mike, you and I, we were trying to play the other day, and we hop on, and we were on there, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, and that should have been enough time to have fun. But then you got pulled away for something, and then I logged off afterwards, and like instead we just ran around for 30 minutes. But if we had,
trying to find PK,
I don't know, but we got some follow ups here to the Jahara's question. So HAP,
yeah.
So why do you think that so few players, when they're like, let's say like yourself, you've got a kind of a defense oriented warrior and you're leading XP on the puke side, why does that never translate over to the dark side?
So I like this question because I kind of want to. I was thinking about stuff to talk about a little bit, and really this is the only thing I could think of, because I like playing orc, but they're so underpowered. And so, well, actually, let me back up. So I do have defense orc warrior. I think I have like 2 of them, and I even tried making a defense troll. But the problem I run into on the darky side for doing XP grinds is I can't find anybody to group with. I log on and I spend like 30 40 minutes, and like, anyone want to XP, and everybody's just off PKing. So that's, I mean, I do have defense style or defense warrior type characters on darky side, but I can't get anybody to group with.
That's a great point. Because especially on Troll, Trample mentioned the same thing, especially on Troll, like communicating with other players is very difficult.
Yeah.
Let alone having them want to do what you want to do.
I don't know what the solution to that is. I think that a lot of people play darky because they want to get into the PK action. And
but I mean, that makes sense. But you don't want no XP, like. You don't want no groups running around on darky. That's not what you're looking for, right? That's a little too extreme.
That's
like saying you want all pukes to be XPers and none to be PKers. Like, we don't want that either,
Right, there should be a balance.
Well, the sad thing is, if you do get like a group of orcs or trolls together, and I can speak from experience, you get a group of orcs or trolls together, and even if you're, just XPing or whatever, people assume you're your PK again. You get so much, people like, oh my god, you overpowered. You're coming, all over the place. Like, really? No, we're leaving. We're minding our own business. At least that was my experience. It's like, we're not going after anyone. I mean, if you walked in the room and saw 6 orcs or a bunch of trolls or something and had a heart attack, like, sorry, but that's, we're not looking for you. If you happen to find us,
Yeah. I think in the past there were XP groups on darky side, and I think that maybe it could just be that the population of MUME has gone down too much to where you can't, like, because I imagine I'm not the only one that logs into darky and looks for somebody to XP with and can't find anything and just logs off.
Yeah, I remember when I first started playing orc. This is a long time ago, and I sucked. Which is why I didn't play that much. But, like, darky super mob groups were super common. They'd be like, hey, can you come kill Ghostly Captain? Yeah, I'm on my way. Like, that was very common. And you always had a bunch of people running around and knock, XPing and stuff, which you still kind of do. But it was like you had groups of orcs. Now it's kind of like, 1 or 2 orcs maybe, like, running around doing something.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you guys have said. Additionally, in my experience, darkies tend up being very one-dimensional. Like, if I trying to play BN caster in like a in like XP, SMOG, PV type thing. Like it just sucks. Like you can't hit for shit. You know, you can't. It's not like on Puke side where you can be a combo and you can have a high stir and you can actually be doing some. You know, you can put 5 pracs in some weapon class and actually be hitting for something. Like just being a BN and just typing assist with like your chanted longsword blows. It's so boring. And then inevitably at some point you're gonna backfire. And then you got depression for like 40, you know, for 30 minutes or whatever. So, and then Orc, we actually, you know what, when Nazgûl first came back, we had a lot of, and I had a character named DTF, which got changed by the draconian woke police in charge of MUME. But my character, we would grind XP and DG a lot of nights, and it was really fun. But what I found, like playing as Orc Shames, like you have to just like sleep, regen a ton.
That's, yeah.
Sorry? So
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say that was the point that I forgot to mention, which is, and I guess I guess maybe I'm doing the hot take early, but I think that I think what could fix it, and this is just because Puke or Whitey casters are so overpowered. I think that if you gave Orcs more mana regen, people would play Shamans, which is kind of what you need in order to XP.
Totally.
I think that you should increase Shaman regen.
Yeah, totally. But just whenever I just feel like whenever I try to play XP Darky, it just feels so one-dimensional, so much regen, so much sleeping, so much, you know, backfiring and shit. I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a huge. Everyone's like, "Oh, the dark side's supposed to be hard." There's a huge difference between difficulty and unfun, and I think everyone could agree that it's fun doing hard things sometimes, but like sleeping more is not fun. You know, that's not. So
yeah,
that's interesting. We're more than halfway through here. Wow, time's been flying. We actually have a new trailer this week. And
another one?
A new trailer, and we'd like to premiere it here today. Get all y'all's opinions on it. So without further ado, we're gonna get a drum roll, and we're going to hop into a new teaser trailer. So here we go. You guys might want to pull up the Twitch stream if you haven't already. Let's see here. All right, you guys ready? Hopefully,
describe it to me afterwards. But,
in a world where hopefully this is the right trailer set up. So here we go. Dun dun dun. Oh, that's wrong. Dun dun dun.
Awesome, man.
There we go. So we got, a new Brie lands that's also coming out very soon.
Fantastic. That's great.
What was the date on that? December 4th, I think.
December 4th. Yeah.
December 4th.
Looks amazing. Good job, everybody.
That looks really cool.
Now
I wonder if we can do. Can we do I feel like closed captioning would be really easy on that for folks.
Oh yeah, there's probably a way of doing that.
Probably a
look
way of
into it.
doing
But yeah,
that.
so Nick, essentially, it was a trailer where they have MUME 10 is coming out, and no,
This is a meme tip.
no, I'm trying to remember what happened. Basically, it was some ominous chief of smuggler talking, and we had some beautiful footage of a Lord of the Rings book, which was handcrafted, and then we had the intro to a lot of new. Oh, go ahead.
The Hobbit corpse down in a cellar or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. It was just Slayer. It was just a standard day in Slayer's life. Anyway, basically, it's a new trailer for the new Brie lands. They're reworking a little bit. There's gonna be a lot of quests and kind of Lobby centric new stuff to do. So,
Do we know what the borders for that zone? Is it going to be something like between Brie and Morthen, or is it going to be Brie to Fornost?
actually, don't know the exact borders of that. So I couldn't tell you that. I do know though that this is a bit more Lobby focused. So because of that, this is obviously going to mess with people's maps a bit. So they're planning on releasing a map along with it so that people can kind of know what's going on. It's not like, oh no, we have no map of this area anymore, because Brie's kind of critical. So, but yeah, I think another big part of it, hopefully it'll clean up the whole like Legend Home ridiculousness. So.
Oh, so it changes inside Brie too.
There's some changes to inside Brie, yeah.
Oh.
Interesting.
Again,
I wonder what they'll be doing about the Legend Homes, because it's kind of crazy. Brie is more Legend Home than Brie at these days.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I think
it's Rivendell as well too.
Because nobody I don't want to change Brie. Like my map, I know where Brie is, all that stuff. I have muscle memory, but at the same time, man, if I go even with a map. My map's all unsynced in the Brie Legend Home area. I have no clue where I am. I get lost so quick. I'm just no clue where I am in the Legend Home area, Brie. So hopefully it cleans it up a bit.
It'd be interesting if they could create. I mean, there's several areas they could probably incorporate it into the lore. They probably could create, a almost a Legend Home city. Just nothing but Legend Homes. Maybe a shop or two, but I mean, you have like that little village just east of Fornost, for example. You could instead of expanding inside Fornost, they could have expanded inside of that with the one I'm talking about, like with the little mage guild and little cleric guild inside.
Yeah. Minus Breathful or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That looks awesome.
Yeah, glad you guys like it.
amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
That place is a big Legend Home. That's what Korwak's saying.
Boys, I gotta hop off early this week.
Okay.
To go be a dad, but awesome chatting with you, Matt. You guys keep it rolling. Keep full steam ahead.
Thanks for
Shout
joining
out-
us, Mike.
Shout out everyone working on the new zones. See you guys.
All right, peace out.
Later, man.
Go ahead.
Speaking of development, I was disappointed that we didn't get a sub race update for the last 2 weeks.
I know. What's up with that?
I've been eagerly awaiting the Dunedain and the Noldo update.
My dopamine levels are crashing right now. Every Friday, I'm like, what is going on? I'm sure it has something to do with the fact that, like I said, December 4th is the release date for, it looks like,
Yeah.
New Zone. So I'm sure they're putting the final touches on that. But still, man, I like my sub race changes. I'm a big fan.
Well,
Actually,
that's been impressive. They've kept up that momentum just for so long. Just
I know.
every week a new change.
And I'm just, I have no room to bitch because I have, and I know Rogan admonishes me all the time for not keeping up with my God work. So I haven't done any work on it. So I'm not actually complaining. I can't wait for new updates.
I think we're all slackers on the God side of things.
Yeah.
That's all slackers.
What sub races do we have left? Is it Zork? Is Zork still? Is there Zork, Noldo, Dunedain,
Dwarf.
maybe Dwarf? Yeah. Is that all?
Half elf.
What about?
I can't.
I thought half elf didn't half elf get something already?
I don't think so. Did they?
Oh,
No, I don't
They
think
did.
so.
Ah.
Did they?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they didn't. I'm going to say they didn't. And of course, the new race, the Moria Goblin, hasn't got one either. But nah, I'm joking. I wish that was their thing. But yeah.
I remember there was a period of time where they were talking about integrating werewolves as a race.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I'm glad they didn't do that. That sounds too much.
I shall create Edward.
Too much.
They, I don't think the population could sustain another side. I mean, the Zork side is pretty much empty most of the time, isn't it?
Yeah, you're looking at like 1 or 2 players usually, maybe 3 on a busy
right.
game. That's just a problem with player base. I think.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot of people on the Whitey side lately.
Yeah, the puke side's been growing.
Certain times.
We're actually getting a lot of newbies, which is again great. We just need to do a better job of retaining them. I think that's whatever secret sauce we're missing there.
It's true.
Gotta keep the pressure on there. That's a good point.
I'm
still though a big fan of the idea of letting newbies be on the dark side. I think that'd be dope. But that's
not trying to steer them away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, away from the dark side. All right, so I got a question for you, Matt. All right, here we go.
Okay.
So, assume here's a mental what's the right word? A hypothetical situation. Let's call MUME a business, okay? Let's call MUME a business, and you are the CEO. Okay, you've just been appointed. You are now the Sundar Pichai. You are the Tim Apple of MUME.
I don't know who that is.
You have a bunch of coders at your disposal. And some money. What would be the changes you would make right off the bat to try to improve the game? What do you think you would do?
Damn. I don't really have any. Like nothing comes up off the top of my head other than that.
It's perfect already.
Trying to improve the playing Darky. I think
really
like the point I made earlier with I don't know why I'm hung up on the mana regen for Shaman because I think
satisfying.
Like Shaman is my was sort of that was the character that was the type of character I first like made legend on and actually got on the Warlords list, so I would go back and play Shaman if I was able to, like, if it was enjoyable again. I actually, so because I have a new Shaman, like I mentioned, I used to have Luku, but I have another like 50 level 50 like pure as you can get Shaman with really low strength. And I go and play it once in a while, but then like I just lose interest after about 30 minutes because I can't find anybody to group with.
Okay.
So
it's a group finder. My leg just fell asleep. News update.
My computer just fell asleep because I didn't move the mouse.
Nice. You're too busy playing or regenning on a Shaman. That's why.
Yeah.
You raised an interesting point though, because I hear a lot of people trying to say, there's too many people soloing, and it's like I really don't see that because it's like you and Peter and everyone I know, like MUME's just not fun unless you're interacting with other people and grouping with them. Like it would not be fun to log into an empty game or log onto the dark side and see yourself in the who list or only see a couple of people on that are off, doing something that you don't want to do. Like it. Sure. So I mean, MUME is really great.
It's a social game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually enjoy showing people how to do stuff, and I know you kind of have the same thing, Nick. Like you enjoy showing people like how to do mobs and whatnot.
Yeah, I think we all do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone on here is shown something to each other at least once.
Peter, you need to show me
a ton from that. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say you need to show me how to lead Balrog.
Oh yeah,
I've done it.
You haven't done it
I've
yet.
done it a million.
There you go.
I've done Balrog a million times, but I haven't led it yet.
You'd be a really great Balrog leader. You've got that level-headed approach to super mobs. Where you're like, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna look at the variables here. This is not a good plan, as opposed to some of us who are just like, I'm frustrated. We're finishing it now. Throne room. Let's go.
Weird. That's weird because I actually thought you had Letix. We've had a bunch of interesting.
No.
Yeah, like I know.
Even-
you know, Peter's let it. Robles let it. Tim and Eric and me and Meg, and I'm probably missing someone, but I thought you were in there somewhere.
I even like I almost I don't know, like I don't know if this is worth mentioning. I was contemplating on a few different Balrog iterations that we had on doing the luring part, but I was always afraid of mob death in the throne room, so I never went through with that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Have you ever been a part of one of those mass graves in the throne room? It's a great feeling.
I think maybe one.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah, Throg is another high level character that I have. That's my Balrog dwarf. And he was my main warrior for a while, but yeah. So that's an interesting juxtaposition, I guess. Is like playing Throg was fun because he's an OB warrior, but then I ended up creating that defense warrior, and for me, it was much more enjoyable playing a defense warrior because I was able to just have people hitting behind me and lead them around.
So here's a question. Here's a question for you. If you, so I think we can all agree, Balrog is a really fun. It's probably one of the most fun super mobs in the game, just because it requires a ton of people and a lot of planning and a lot of skill, really, from everyone's part. You have to really know what's going on. It's a great experience, and the loot's amazing. But one of the problems with Balrog is once you've beat Balrog, it's like, well, that's the top, you know. I beat Balrog, you know. There's not a lot that can top that. If you had to add an extra super mob to the game, the next level of like, this is a badass thing that you've got to kill with insane loot that's even more than the Balrog, what would it be? What would it be?
Can you repeat the question?
Basically, Balrog is a great super mob because it's very difficult to kill. It requires a lot of teamwork and skill. One of the problems with it, though, is that's like peak. That's like the pinnacle. You can't do better than that super mob. That is the best super mob. If you wanted to create the next level, the next tier of super mob, so Balrog is A tier, you wanted the S tier super mob. What would you want from it?
Oh, what loot? Well,
yeah, loot, or like, who would it be? Like, would it be Smog? Would you want a Sauron incantation, or like
Smog would be great.
The sorcerer in Dol Guldur? Like, who would the next Balrog be? The bigger Balrog.
Smog, but it would be Smog, but it wouldn't be much. Like I mean, based on the lore and my understanding of the lore, it couldn't be much higher. It wouldn't be much higher than Balrog, right? Because aren't they the well, the Mog, like the difficulty. I guess
they didn't say anything about Balrog in terms of like how difficult he was, but they went on several pages in the books about how like unkillable Smog is.
Aren't they both like Maya, whatever, like the base Maya level?
I don't know.
Matt's right. Matt's correct. They're basically enemies of the second age that no one in the third age is really strong enough. I mean, Gandalf kind of perishes when he fights a Balrog, and then you go back in the Silmarillion and you read about these wars that the elves at the time had, and they had many Balrogs on the enemy side. And they just had one Balrog was almost too much for the Fellowship to handle. So I mean, that's kind of, in dragons. The dragons are kind of the same. They're at the time of Bilbo, they're children's fairy tales. They almost don't believe in them. They think they've all died out or never existed or whatever. So I mean, yeah, they. Matt's right there. They're kind of almost on the same equivalent level, but I think you would have to have a different strategy for killing a dragon versus a Balrog, and the loot would definitely be different considering you have an entire mountain full of treasure.
I know, right?
Yeah, maybe like less
Like,
power
collecting
focus
wealth
and
from
more like
dwarves.
gold focus. Like you just like
You
insane
type
gold.
you type
Loot
get
the
coins,
stone.
It's like
and
3,000.
yeah, you type get coins, and all of a sudden you have 17,000 gold.
Yeah. But you could also
Um,
like butcher a dragon and get all kinds of crazy stuff out of it, like talons and its hide and
Wormhide, yeah.
right.
everything.
But and he has the Arkan. Smog has the Arkan stone.
Yeah, he has the
What
Arkansas.
does
You're
that?
right.
What does that thing do again? I forgot.
I don't think it does anything. It's kind of like a Silmaril. It just
Oh
you
yeah.
want it. You see it and you want it.
So that would be something you turn into Saruman for a circlet.
Oh, probably more than a circlet. I think it's way more valuable than a circlet.
Mhm.
Like, yeah. But yeah,
Gore-
Smog would be. What are some other options though? You could have the sorcerer in Dol Guldur. You could have. I guess you could make up a dragon. There were a lot of dragons back in the like Glaurung was another dragon. And we do have
What
a
if-
dragon immune.
What if they? Because weren't they working on that southern? I can't remember the name of the. No, the that fort down in
Isengard?
what is it?
Isengard?
No, like why can't I
do you
feel
mean
like it
Helm's
starts with
Deep?
yeah, Helm's Deep.
Oh yeah.
So what if they opened zones down there and then like further south there was like a Southron patrol or something with like one of those Oliphant.
Ooh, an Oliphant. Ooh, I like
Ooh.
it.
Yeah,
Dope. That'd be dope. Actually, Helm's Deep could do stuff too. Like you could have like a tower defense in MUME where you just get like raided by like, kind of like Eastgate, but like on steroids, And as opposed to you walking into Eastgate, they're walking into you, and you get to like run around the ramparts. That'd be sick.
that would be kind of cool.
That'd be sick. Pouring oil and stuff, and like launching catapults and all kinds of craziness. That'd be dope.
I love the trebuchets in the movie.
So, you've worked on a couple zones yourself, man, right?
Yeah. I claim that I did two zones. But Rogan would probably dispute that and say that like, well, you left them unfinished.
Fair enough.
But yeah, like the first one was a central Anduin zone, and the most notable thing about that experience was that, and I think it was just the time period, but like I was working on it in 2010, I think, and I think it took until I can't even remember when it was released. Like I feel like I was finished with the zone to a certain point, and I had to wait like 5 real life years before it went to the next phase. So
Wow.
I appreciate that Rogan is kind of driving that
Cracking the whip.
that effort. Yeah, cracking the whip and driving the effort for getting some of these projects finished.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, no, the project the projects, the ABR and Brie, which are both now not secret.
okay.
They've been making very good progress, honestly.
Yeah, I have one of those ABR zones too. I wasn't going to mention it because I thought it was still under wraps.
We released a teaser for it. It's gotta be. It can't be secret
Oh,
anymore.
okay. I didn't see that. Okay, actually, that was
week.
the first time I saw the teaser segment.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
No, the other teaser was released last week. A little bit different vibe. That was more because it's for a different audience. Like the ADR is more like a new zone, kind of probably gonna be a little bit more dangerous. Whereas Brie is, it's gonna be more interesting, but you're probably not gonna be meeting any super mobs there.
Right.
At least, actually, I don't know. I didn't work on Brie, so maybe there's a super mob on Brie now. I have no clue.
My understanding is the new Brie stuff is supposed to be like, like if you're new to the game, you come in, you start at Black Towers,
Tower Hills.
Black Hills. Isn't that what it's called?
I think it's Tower Hills. Tower Hills.
Okay, Tower Hills. And then you do all your quest. Go ahead.
I was saying yes. It's the Tower Hills is the newbie. So.
Okay. Yeah, and then you do all
Black
the quests
Hill Village.
there. And I think that think the idea is like you'll get sent to Brie once you complete all those quests.
Once Milton is done with you.
Yeah, and then you'll have like a whole another series of quests for like, I don't know, levels 10 through 15 or something like that.
Give it a little bit more of a handoff, less of.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea because it gives people almost like modern day MMOs. It gives people kind of like a storyline to follow.
Yeah, stories are awesome. Everyone loves a story, man. You put a story on anything, and it's just better.
Totally.
Yeah.
Gore Walk is giving me shit because there's a Throg already, and yeah, I know.
Did you copy a character?
I did actually, because I think I copied the name because I created that character a long time ago. But Throg was such a badass. I was like, I want a character like that. Yeah.
Gotta make a Elastier with 2 R's next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Elastier. Yeah. So what would you say your favorite character is? And you say you think HAP or NeuroCap?
I guess for the time being, yeah, those two probably. Like I said, I don't think I necessarily have a favorite character. It's just like there's one that I feel like playing, I guess.
Yeah.
At any given time.
So here's another question. When you play, are you usually more of a you just log on and see who's on and then get people to group with you, or do you have like a crew that you log on with and they're always on at the same time and you kind of group the same people? What's your approach more when you're playing?
I would say the first one because I don't really like. To be honest, a lot of the people that because it used to be like we had a group where like we would communicate out of game. To say like, hey, you playing? Let's do XYZ, whatever.
Yeah.
Let's go XP. But a lot of those people that I used to communicate with, they don't play anymore. And so, yeah, I'll just log on and be like, anyone want to XP?
Yeah, which is good for the game. It gets more people intermingling.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I always find that interesting because there's definitely a lot of players out there who, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, they've got their crew they play with. So they're, and I feel like at higher levels that tends to happen a lot more where you go like, okay, I play with these people.
Yeah, and I get it, like because the thing with MUME is
you gotta trust people.
I mean it's too easy to cheat. There's no way to get around that. I don't think.
Cheating.
Yeah, like because I mean, I guess the hypothetical I'm thinking of is like, and not I'm not implying that this happens actively or that I know of any case like this, but I just imagine like if there was a group of people that maybe know each other in real life or whatever, and one logs in a god and then like they can just watch what the other side's doing while their buddy plays the opposing side and uses cross-race information, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's a thing that happens very much. I'm sure that cheating does happen. I don't think that it's usually at the god level though. That's pretty obvious. And that's why I like the way that the promotion system works with it for God, because like you have to prove that you're trustworthy before you get certain accesses. Yeah, exactly.
I think the other reason why you see sort of cliques forming is when and this there's pros and cons, but when you group with people, not just that you trust, but you can anticipate what their response is going to be to a given situation. So, for example, I used to, when me and Tim would run around in 2-man stuff, we'd go into what do you call it? The undeads. So we'd go into undeads and you have all those little doors down there. And so regardless of whether he was leading or I would lead, it'd be like he'd if I was leading, I would be picking the north doors, and he would instantly start picking the south doors, or vice versa. If he was leading, he'd be picking the north, I'd be picking the south. Like that, those little things like that, that like
Yeah.
you can anticipate. You can anticipate like who's most likely to, in a situation, like how people are going to react, which is useful. Which if you don't know a newcomer very well, it's kind of a wild card. You don't know like if they're going to panic, if they're going, what if the zone suddenly repops and like you're all kind of low, like are they going to sit there and instantly, if they're a cleric, are they going to sit there and like instantly start blinding everything, and or are they going to be like, oh shit, or are they going to try to heal you, or what are they going to try to do? Like
I agree. Yeah, and yeah, like with the blinding situation, it's a good example. I think maybe that's why I think maybe for my playstyle, that's kind of why I just roam around with a massive group, because a lot of those people, I'm still either they're not at that point where they have that second sense or whatever to know to like blind right away, or I just haven't seen them demonstrate that yet. And so I'll just like basically like be super wimpy mode, clearing stuff, breaking all doors before we go in with like a group of 5.
Do you have any pet peeves with like when you're leading a group, especially as a warrior? When you're leading a group, do you have any kind of like things that you think, just in general, people could improve on, or things that you don't really like? I mean, for example, I really rage against people's auto assist, because then they go AFK and they are auto assisting, and eventually I used to be concerned about them for the longest time, and eventually I was just like, well, if you're going to use auto assist and have the game play the computer play the game for you, and I have to flee and you die, like I will try not to let you die, but like that's that's on you if you're not paying attention. But like what do you have, like any kind of sort of pet peeves like that? Or
not really. Since you bring that one up, I would say that's definitely annoying. But I'm like you. I kind of, it's like, okay, if that's what you want to do, I'll try and rescue you. But if I have to go out of that room, it's I'll tell you flee. But beyond that, there's not much I can do. But I think, and not really, like I think that I'm pretty forgiving, or not forgiving, but like accepting of people, like, because I know there's one player that's always like, when you're XPing, he's always like, oh, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. And a lot of people get super annoyed by it, but it doesn't bother me. I just kind of ignore it, and I'm like, well, I'm leading, so I'm going to do what I want to do. Right. But I think if there was something, it would probably, and I hate to, this is kind of like, sometimes this irritates me, sometimes it doesn't. Probably more when I have a lot of caffeine and I'm like going quickly. Is when people are slow. It drives me nuts. Like I'm like, lead. We're trying to go east.
Oh yeah. It's like, well, the lead thing, that's something I really think that auto ride and auto lead should be built into the game, because some people have triggers, some people don't. I mean, I always had a trigger. I generally believe in like, I don't like the computer to play the game for me, but there are little things like auto ride and auto lead, and I never turn. I mean, I'm pretty public about it. Like, even if an orc comes in the room or something, I will not turn off auto ride or auto lead. Because they don't make it easy for me, because they don't have an easy way to send a no void status, like in at least when I was playing, not through GMCP or whatever. Like there was no easy way to update the client. Oh, hey, you would have to trigger on orcs, and then write a complicated trigger to do something that the game should be sending your client. And B, because that should be built into the game, and no one turns it off, not even in PK. But it's like there are those holdouts that will not auto. They will be like, oh, I insist on typing lead or ride, and it's like you're waiting to enter, and they're every time you have to lead or ride, they're taking 5 seconds to lead or ride, and it's like, oh, I know exactly what you mean.
And I was only using, and that's true. I agree with you. I was only using that as an example, but like, it'll be things like, telling people, telling people to like move one way or the other, or even that like scenario that you mentioned where you're in an area that requires fast reactions if there's like a sudden repop, and like they're just kind of standing there.
Yeah.
For me,
and like I said, I try to be forgiving and accepting, but and I usually won't say anything like, man, you, or like kick them out of the group or anything, but it's just, yeah, it is a little bit irritating when people are slow.
Yeah.
I'd have to say for me, and I'm guilty of doing this. This is something that you don't really realize is annoying until you've fled. But if you know what you're doing, oftentimes you can kind of get like carried away with how much what you're doing. So like you'll go off and do something to kind of either like check on something or help the group or whatever. And once you start leading for a bit, you can realize how annoying that is. Like if someone just like splits randomly and starts going do something else, which oftentimes it doesn't really matter. But if you're really leading a group of like 4 or 5 around, and then all of a sudden you have 3 for some reason, and you're like, well, what like and they just split and they don't tell you what they're doing. It can be very frustrating, especially if you're clearing mobs and now your DPS is down significantly. Or this happens a lot during Balrog. And again, yeah, Tim's saying he does that. I do that too sometimes, but it's one of those things that when you're leading, you realize how annoying it is. But like, especially if you're doing more, you're a Balrog or something where it's like, oh, if something goes wrong, there's actually kind of serious consequences. And you need like a bunch of people to do something, like you're doing Miranog, and all of a sudden you have 3 people doing Miranog. You're like, where did everyone go?
Yeah.
But I'm not too harsh on that, because like I totally do that too. But it's just one of those things that you realize that when you're the leader, you're like, crap, I shouldn't do that.
Or they see a player whizzes through the room, and like some of the people in the group also like to PK, and so all of a sudden they're chasing the other player, and you're like, wait a minute, guys.
See, that one
right
actually,
back here.
That one
I'm buffing these things.
I actually don't mind that one nearly as much. Like if I'm the leader and 2 or 3 group mates go off and spam and chase the orc or whatever, I actually appreciate that, because A, they might get the kill, and B, there is nothing more frustrating than when you have like 1 or 2 enemies around and you are a slow group that can't keep up with them, or just in general you're very slow. So it's nice having kind of like, they're almost like scouts or your vanguard or I don't know what, that go out and like deal with him and then they come back to you. I appreciate that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but I think there's a fine line, like between leaving the group vulnerable or like you said, being a useful scout, and I think that Tim does really well.
Oh yeah, Tim's great. Robo's good at
with
it.
that.
Yeah,
He communicates what he's doing.
If you communicate and you tell me, hey, I'm going after this, or I gotta go check this, or whatever, totally different scenario. But I think we've all had those people where they just disappear, and you're like, what happened? And they're like, oh yeah, there's nothing load on this. It's like, okay, that's great, but you should have told me that you're going.
I think one other sort of maybe you two don't, maybe it doesn't, I don't know how much it affects other people, but for me, my other sort of pet peeve is people that auto loot stuff, especially keys. Like if you want to get me raging behind my keyboard, like when I'm, especially since I can't see a lot of the text when it's spamming past me, because the limitations of the screen reader, when I expect something to be there and it's not there, and then I'm like, okay, did someone auto loot it, or so then I have to like freeze the output of my screen, which then makes me vulnerable if something else happens while I'm reviewing up, and I have to review up several lines through spam and go, oh yeah, this person like auto looted a key or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, like I always tell people, like, turn that off, turn that shit off if you want to group.
Absolute worst though. This is the only unforgivable sin. This is the most unforgivable sin for me though, is when you're in a group and someone comes in and they panic and they run. I hate that so much. Like, stand your ground, unless it's super obvious, like a BN is quaking. Stand your ground, assist me, do whatever. Like, don't just peace out because you're scared, unless it's like super obvious. And sometimes it is super obvious. You know, like, okay, there's 3 of you and 8 orcs walked in. Like, okay, you can leave. You know, but if there's this is again happened so many times where like there's 7 of you, you're walking around, you're doing DG or something, and 3 or 4 orcs enter, and then 1 or 2 guys splits because they panic because they see 3 or 4 orcs, but you're in a group of 8, and then they go off and die, and it's like, look, I'm sorry, man, like you left the group, like just stay with us, you know, we will protect you, we will heal you, we will do damage. You do so much. People completely underestimate how much damage you do in a group of 7 if you're just sitting there spamming assist. Like, you do a lot, you know.
And you've made the group more vulnerable too.
Exactly.
The main group.
I totally agree. I was thinking about that as you were explaining it, and one thing that can mitigate that, and that sometimes I'll think to do this, but a lot of times I'm just kind of mindlessly just mowing down mobs, and I don't think about what do you do. Like, brief your group. Brief your group on what the plan is, and it works out amazingly. Like if you know there's a quaking BN running around, if I'm playing a warrior, I'll be like, all right,
this is what we're gonna
flee for the quake, come back. I will stand and bash him, come back and nuke, and like it works really well when you sort of have a tentative plan.
I think the opposite side of pet peeves, the thing I love the most, is when you have a good group mate who knows how to pouch. That guy is invaluable. I know I've been there before where I've been like, you eat a bash or something, you're about to go down, and someone comes in to nuke you, and your group mate just pouches, and you're safe. And like that moment right there, that is the opposite of a pet peeve. I don't know what that's called, but it's just a golden moment. Group mates that know rare. how to pouch.
Yeah, I suck at that.
Yeah, it's tough, but man, every once in a while. I think Tim did that for me once, and I was just like, oh my god, thank you.
Tim saved my ass so many times with things like pouch and
good pouch usage. Player Day is amazing at it too. Anyway, but we're approaching. What do we say, Tim? I mean, Mike. I mean, Nick. Jesus Christ. Every name of the game. Matt, what did you say? No. What did you say, Nick?
No, I remember one time years ago when I was grouping with Elistier on one of his alts, and I think I was playing Dent at the time, and I was buffing, and a bunch of we got there weren't a lot of there was maybe like me, him, and I don't even think. There might have been a third person. I don't remember. I think it was just 2 of us at that particular time. And something like a group of 5 or 6 entered. I ate a bash unhumanly fast. And they were all gearing up to nuke the hell out of me. And just without missing a beat, so just hits his keyboard macro, whatever he does, and just stun pouches the room and interrupts all those nukes. And I lived just because of that, because I was low at the time.
Such a godsend. And it takes so much awareness, because usually if you're pouching, you're usually not the target; it's someone else, and so you have to know okay, this is a good moment. So I was very impressed by that. But anyway, we're getting close to the end here. You guys have any hot takes before we sign off?
Unfortunately, I spoiled mine already, and that was more mana regen for shamans.
No, that's a good one. That's an important one. Nick, you got one real quick?
I'm gonna sort of reiterate what I think all of us said earlier about. I would really like us. I would really like. I mean, to either re-examine mob death or re-examine the source of the issue, which isn't really mob death, which is, as we all agreed earlier, is trophy. If we could make a way, say, for when you mob die, it freezes your trophy, the experience, your knowledge of animals, and allows you to get back up to get your level back without ruining your trophy. And then once you get your level back, then you start gaining knowledge of animals or mobs or whatever again. Like that would be, I think, a great compromise that I think everyone, even the and there are a lot of, for various reasons, and some of them are good reasons. People think we shouldn't change mob death or whatever. Well, that's fine, but we should. The real issue isn't even mob death. It's that your character can essentially, in your mind, at least become ruined. And this would be a way to mitigate that. And I think that would be a good compromise that a lot of people could agree on and find some common ground on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. For me, I just have to say, I wish the gameplay loop was shorter. We had more short-term goals. I wish there was a little bit more of a log on, have some fun, hop off. I think a lot of people would really appreciate that. But that's all we had for today. Thank you, Matt, so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Nick, as always, thanks for co-hosting, and Mike, who's not here, but we appreciate you too, Mike. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you guys.